welcome to Progressive HR Live. Happy HR Professionals Day. So here's a fun fact. Today is HR Professionals Day, but International HR Professionals Day is on May 20th. So isn't it great that we get 2 days to celebrate? I'm so excited. Let us know who you are, where you're streaming from, and I guess, what are you doing to celebrate HR Professionals Day? Let us know in the comments, and I'm going to introduce our guest today, Tracie Sponenberg. Tracie, how are you today? And welcome to Progressive HR Live.
Thank you, Coreyne. I'm so happy to be here, and I see some friends already, Melissa and Kim joining, and I'm sure some others. So this is really going to be a fun chat, and I'm really honored you asked me. So, and I know it took us a long time to kind of coordinate, so I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It's been a long time, almost 6 or 7 months since we've been trying to plan this. Yeah. So I'm going to go to the chat really quickly and kind of highlight people who are joining us right now. So we'll start with Melissa, since Melissa actually put the comment even in before we went live because she needed to get the comment, Happy HR Professionals Day. And Kimberly, thrilled that you can make this session. Thanks, Kimberly. And then we have Musa. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. And then Melissa says, again, no problem. Employee just bought me flat. Oh, that's so sweet.
Oh, that's nice. I'm not surprised. I know Melissa well. She's a good friend and she's wonderful. So there's all the flowers in the world.
Oh, that's awesome. So if you are joining us today, welcome to Progressive HR Live. I'm here chatting with Tracie Sponenberg. We're going to be talking about Gen AI and HR, and happy Professional HR Day. And let us know who you are, where you're joining from, and what you're doing today to celebrate HR Professionals Day. A few more people joining. We had Russell Davis. Russell Davis was our guest last month. And then we have Jeffrey Perry joining us, celebrating by implementing a new HR system. Great way to celebrate.
I don't know if that's celebrating or not. That's a tough one, but congrats.
It really depends on, if you are so into tech, and that's very exciting for you. To me, that would be super exciting with the new HR system. But yes, I know that it can come with a lot of stress. So let's get into our questions now. First question I'm going to ask Tracie, what is generative AI and why do we need to care about it?
So I love this topic, and we were kind of batting this back and forth. This is something that I think there's a lot of talk on generative AI, but I think not quite enough from an HR perspective. And just to set the groundwork on how I come at this, it's very much from a learner's perspective. So I'm still learning, I'm still growing, but I talk to people about generative AI all the time. And for some reason lately, I've been asked to talk about it a lot. So I love whenever I can, because whenever I do, I get to learn about it. So again, this is just from a learner's perspective. You may know more than I do. If you do, throw questions in the comments. We want this to be really interactive. So when we talk about generative AI, for the purposes of kind of the rest of this conversation, we're going to mainly focus on ChatGPT. So ChatGPT emerged like a phoenix seemingly about a year ago, seemingly out of nowhere, although it was, in the plans for a long period of time. And we're going to focus most of what we talk about on that. But when you think about traditional AI, which we all have in our lives in one form or another and have for many, many years, it performs dedicated tasks, specific tasks on set rules and patterns. So if this, then that. And when you're talking about generative AI, it starts to get kind of more human-like. It's new data. Like ChatGPT was trained not on the internet, although some of that, rather, it doesn't reach out to the internet, but some of the internet data would have come in, trained as of October 2021 to really kind of mimic human responses. But chatbots and generative AI have really been around since 1961. So the first one was called Eliza, which I thought this was really cool. So I think of chatbots as being really a newer phenomenon. So generative AI is really kind of a subset of AI models that are designed to mimic that human interaction. You can really kind of have a conversation with it. It's a language model. So if you ever ask it for something that's new, give me some data from 2023 on HR trends. It won't know that. It's a language model and it was trained as of September 2021. We're talking about ChatGPT. But it goes far beyond language, or at least the written word. It goes into music, it goes into art, it goes into all kinds of things. So when we're talking about generative AI, we're not just talking about language. We're talking about other things beyond that. And why we need to care about it? It's changing the way we work. It's changing the way we think. It's changing the way we interact. And it's something that we need to at least understand, if not use.
Thanks, Tracie. So you mentioned about ChatGPT, that it was we're training it since a certain time, or before a certain time, 2021. But isn't ChatGPT 4 or ChatGPT Plus extended that period? We're still not quite into 2023.
Right.
But, when is the point we'll be into 2023?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. I go back and forth between GPT-4 and 3.5, and because I pay for the GPT-4, but it's slower. And so I use the 3.5 a lot, unless I want to use something with the plugins, and then I use that. But I think most people, if they're dipping into the free accounts, are using the 3.5.
Yeah, I haven't pulled the plug yet in getting ChatGPT 4. I'll have to admit, I love Gen AI. Everything that I'm doing now has a hint of Gen AI. I do some things on eBay, partly because I'm really interested in the algorithms, and they just started implementing Gen AI to create descriptions, which I think is fabulous. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if anybody's noticed, LinkedIn has a beta that is trying to create our headlines for. What did you say?
It's terrible. It's terrible. Yeah, so ChatGPT can be terrible too, but it's in, I added it onto Google. It's in, it's coming from Microsoft. It's in for Microsoft for certain people, but it's everywhere.
It is. And if it's not everywhere now, it's going to be everywhere as soon as it possibly can get everywhere.
Okay, it's January 2022. Okay, great.
Thanks, Melina. I appreciate that. Just quickly going to our chat, a few people more people joining us. This is Danny, excuse me again. I apologize if I'm not saying names correctly. Please correct me in the chat. Danielle Ori, Director of Career Services with Computer Coach in Tampa, Florida. And let's connect. And there's the LinkedIn profile, which reminds me, this is all conversation is also about networking. So if you are interested in networking with our audience here, please go ahead and add your LinkedIn profile link to the chat and everyone can network. And then we have, and I'm going to look this name up here quickly. This is Mindy. Mindy's ears must have been Happy HR Professionals Day, Mindy. Great to see you. So going back to our questions, my next question is, and you kind of touched on this already, is why is generative AI important to human resources?
So I think now I'm going to overgeneralize, and it looks like we have some tech savvy people in the audience, which is wonderful. But when I talk to like local HR association chapters, when I talk to people who've kind of come up within their company and found themselves in HR, technology is an area that certainly could be improved, right? And so I think that as a whole, at least many of us in the non-tech sector tend to lag a little bit behind when it comes to technology. And I think, AI will follow along with that. A few years ago, I was at a conference where I was talking about branding, something totally different, but I asked a question about AI and somebody next to me turns and goes, no, I didn't go to that session. I don't want to know what's going to take my job. So I think there's a fear of the unknown. And that was definitely me maybe 10 years ago. But in its current form, it can do a lot of things. I use it a lot. My team uses it a lot for brainstorming. I did 3 sessions at a conference last week, and I was like, I have to come up with questions, and I used ChatGPT to brainstorm questions, feeding it in the description. It's a tool, and that will come up over and over. It's a really good tool. It's not a replacement. It's meant to augment humans. But over time, when it's bolted on to certain things now, but as it gets safer and more secure, you can feed a bunch of data in it and it can give you insights on data. It can help your work in so many ways and help you be so much more efficient and help your people really have a better employee experience and help personalize that for them. It's really, really, really exciting. And we're just at the very beginning.
I concur to that. Yes, absolutely. And I don't know if anybody has seen, I think it was yesterday that AI HR came out with a prompt infographic for recruiting. And I haven't seen their HR prompt graphic yet. Maybe they have one out, but I mean, I think that would have to be more than one infographic because what generative AI can do for HR is so expansive.
Sean Davis did something. She runs a conference called the HR Plug, and she did something on generative AI. It's a quick prompt sheet. It was really, really great. So you can ping her or look that up on LinkedIn. And she had something that was general that was really helpful to me.
And that was LaShawn Davis, correct?
LaShawn Davis, yes.
Yeah. And she is the founder of HR Plug, correct? Which is the conference that you'll be attending come this. You'll be attending virtual, but it's in Atlanta.
It's in Atlanta. Yeah, I think I'm going to pop in and do a quick session virtually.
So we've got a few people that wanted to let you know that you're a powerhouse HR professional and a thought leader we could all learn from. And this is Danielle, and says that this is an exciting topic. And then Kimberly chimes in that she concurs with what Danielle is saying.
Wonderful people, both.
Yes, absolutely. And then we've had Mary join us. Happy to be here. I'm fascinated by how AI is used. Happy to connect. Awesome. And then as well, Brian is joining us. So welcome, everybody. If you are just joining us now, please go ahead and introduce yourself in the chat, and happy HR Professionals Day. We're going to go on to our next question. And the next question is, what advice would you give to HR executives and leaders who want to use ChatGPT for work tasks? Because I know this has kind of been a controversial topic.
Yeah, I think, a lot of companies, and my company did this, a lot of companies' response to ChatGPT coming in is block, you can't go to that site. So we actually did that too. And we had a workaround. And so I think one of the things, whenever you have something, and again, it's not really new, but it's new to the wider world, come out are there sets of norms and standards and rules and governance and ethics? And that's really developing. So I think you really have to be very, very careful. Like I have my whole team using ChatGPT, the free version, but with very clear instructions, don't put any company data, don't put any company's sensitive information in that. We're looking at the enterprise version, so that might be an option, and there are other ways to do that safer, but you have to be very, very careful. So number one, really set up that governance, set up the ethics, set up the standards, set up the rules that you're going to use it. Certainly partner with IT and be very, very careful with that data privacy. Again, I can't say that like too many times. And training, and we'll talk about prompting, I think, in a little bit, and we've touched on it, but you can't necessarily just throw your team at ChatGPT, here you go, because they really have to understand how to use it, why to use it, and what it could be helpful for.
Yeah, and there's a lot of discussion around hallucinations and bias. I myself have encountered bias, but I haven't encountered what I would consider to be a hallucination. So for the audience who is joining us now, if you don't know what a ChatGPT hallucination is, what is that, Tracie?
I don't know. You tell me. Bias, I can tell. So is it when it just goes completely off the rails? Because that can happen.
Yeah, no, it goes off the rails and it provides you with information that isn't true.
So I haven't heard the term hallucination, but it can, and even I asked ChatGPT for advice on prompting, and even it says, check the information you get. So I think you bring up a good point that you can't necessarily trust the information that you're getting. So we're using a tool that's a great tool, but it may be giving us incorrect information. So I don't think it's actually right now a great tool to use if you know nothing and you're, say, having to create a report for your CEO on a particular topic. You really need to check that. It's good to augment certain things, but it can give you wrong information.
I mainly use it if I'm having kind of a creative block, or if I'm trying to get things done a little bit quicker than I normally would, because I'm, multitasking a lot. And I think a lot of HR professionals do that as well. But as Tracie said, make sure when you are using it that you're reading through it and not just copy and pasting, because that's really important.
And the bias too. I mean, that's ultimately, hopefully we can use it to help root out bias. But there's that famous Amazon example that wasn't ChatGPT necessarily, but using AI, and it trained out women and people of color for applicants. So you have to use it really carefully. It can pick out certain things, but right now, really, really careful.
Yeah. And you make a great point that it is trained on historical data. And the only way to train that out is for more people to use it and give it correct information.
Right.
So we're doing the world a service by using Gen AI. Absolutely.
So a fun use of it, Joe Wentworth references that. I haven't had that experience, but recipes. That's terrible. So you have to be careful. But I made dinner last night with a ChatGPT recipe. I said, I have chicken, broccoli, and sweet potatoes. What can I make that's healthy? And so that's sort of a fun way to dip your toes into it. If you're nervous about using it for work, try it for cooking. I'm going to be afraid. My recipes were good that I've tried it with.
So I have not been keeping up with the comments and the questions that have been coming through, but we do have a few questions and we have some comments as well. So I'm going to go to the first question that we have from, let me see who this is, because unfortunately it gives LinkedIn users. Well, here's one from Becky Marsden really quickly. She asked if this will be recorded. Yes, Becky, it's going to be recorded and it's going to be on replay on LinkedIn on this live for a week. And then it'll also have a native recording on YouTube. So this is Danielle. The question is, why are we so shy about using AI to support our efforts? Why do you think that is?
Yeah, again, I think it's a broad generalization, but I think things that are new tend to be scary. And this is something that's new and very much unknown for a lot of people. And so, I mean, I know at least I try to jump into things now, but that took a lot of effort on my part. If this was me 10 years ago, I certainly wouldn't be sitting here and I probably wouldn't even be using it. So it's new. It's new. It's scary. There's a lot of fear around that, but and I think there is a fair amount of fear about, is it going to take my job? And if I learn this, is it going to take my job? Valid fear. It will take some jobs, and automation and AI have already replaced, a lot of jobs, like in manufacturing, and now it's coming for more office-based jobs, but it's not human and it's not that creative yet. And, it can't look somebody in the eye yet. I mean, we'll see. We'll see what's coming.
So Kimberly, I see your comment, and we're actually going to be talking about prompts in a little bit. So I'm going to save your comment until we get to prompts. But Melina says that AI has been so helpful in her team. However, it needs to be guided by two principles for it to be successful. One, it should be used to augment work and not replace it. And two, like any system, it's garbage in, garbage out. Exactly. Taking the time to train it properly on prompt engineering is the best use of time. And I 100% absolutely agree with that.
Totally agree.
Thank you, Melina. And then there we go. Sharon says AI is a very interesting topic. I'm definitely not using it fully, but have for some time, but have for some starting points. Thank you for hosting this topic. You're welcome, Sharon.
And there's no shame in that. I mean, there's no shame in it's still new. And but it is something, and I don't say this often. I said this to a group of HR professionals earlier this year. Start learning it now. This is not going away. And it's something that, like, I want my team to be embracing it and be earlier adopters and at least understand it. So it's not going anywhere. So we're better off learning it now.
And especially because a lot of the HRIS systems and a lot of the vendors are bringing Gen AI in. And I really feel that to be able to support our companies, we have to understand what are they bringing in? What is the Gen AI doing? Is this healthy or not healthy? Is this just kind of like a blanket, let's Gen AI it and like, or say it's Gen AI, but not, you know, we have to be aware.
Right.
And then Melina says, and when we were talking earlier about hallucinations, to avoid hallucination, you have to limit the outcomes in the way you ask and to provide instruction that if it can't answer, respond with, I don't know. That's a very great succession.
If you ask it a broad question, it may give you like 150 response, not to say, but you know, it may give you a dozen or more things. So being as specific as possible. And I think that that's a great advice to say, if you don't know, don't know. Interact with it kind of like you would interact with a person. And there's some data, and I don't know how true this is, but if you say please and thank you, you may get better results. So I try to do that because I try to, you know, mimic what I would do in talking to a person.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, being very like future forward is that we're going to have Gen AI bots as our secretaries, as our assistants.
Co-pilots. Yeah.
24/7. So yeah, it's very important. Matthew says that he loves the idea of dabbling. This is a powerful tool which can be leveraged for all of us, 100%. And then Russell said, glad you brought up bias in the conversation. And then there's a great book called Algorithms of Oppression. Oh, that's very interesting, discussing search engine bias. This may hold true for AI. Yeah, excellent. We got a lot of good resources here. So we have a few comments about prompts. So I think I'm just going to get on to that question. And how can we train ChatGPT in our voice?
So I want to talk a little bit about prompting first, and then I'm going to jump into training it in our voice, because that's something that I did, and I tried that a while ago. But I actually, because you can read all kinds of articles, and you can do all kinds of research on prompting. And am I allowed to comment? Because I think this is really helpful. I can cut and paste this into, no, it won't let me. So I'm going to give it to you, Coreyne, and then
I can comment.
Yeah. So this was, whoops. All right. It wasn't very short. So I'm going to read this, and then I'll be happy to send it to people. So I asked ChatGPT, the 3.5, how can I best get answers from you? You know, how can I best use you for prompting? And it talked about being specific. The context matters. Use natural language. Ask open-ended questions, not yes or no questions. Break down complex questions into multiple parts. Clarify when necessary. Ask follow-up questions. Request clarifying answers. Avoid leading questions. So don't frame it in a way that suggests a specific answer. And that will help with bias. Be patient. It can take a while to generate sometimes. Check for clarity, experiment, and iterate. And this is where the date came from. It says, remember, I rely on the information up to my last knowledge update in September 2021. So if you have questions about events or developments that occurred after that date, I may not have the most correct information. So I think you can use ChatGPT as a tool to learn ChatGPT. And we tend to think, well, I'll go to Google, or I'll go to, listen in on this. And it can actually teach you a lot of things about how to prompt it. And I think, who better to teach you how to prompt ChatGPT than ChatGPT, right? And so I did something similar when I trained it to write in my voice, which you've probably seen this. There's a lot of people on LinkedIn who, it's wonderful for content. If you're a content creator, I don't consider myself one. It can generate content quickly and easily. And you can kind of see on LinkedIn now, for those who aren't editing it, what is and what isn't done through ChatGPT. So I wanted to test that out. So I taught it to write like me. So I kept feeding it samples of my writing. And I said, when you get enough, tell me to stop. So I did probably more than a dozen samples. And then I asked it what my style was, and it really hit the nail on the head. And then I asked it to generate a LinkedIn post. And I did share that. And I did disclose that it was written by ChatGPT, though the ethics on that are really super unclear, which is something I personally felt like I wanted to. And it did, aside from all of the little symbols, it did really sound like me. And I think if you're drafting an email, if you're drafting a communication to your boss, if you're having to write something that has to be in your voice, you should always edit it. You should always, look it over finally, but it could be a really good tool for that. So I wanted to try that. And content creation too.
Yeah. And so I'll admit that I use ChatGPT for content creation. And similar here to what Danielle says is that she recommends using prompts for plain speech to generate or pull ideas that you've been having trouble articulating.
Yep.
And but I haven't trained it in my voice simply because, I look at it and I say, the confusion between, so when you have a prompt and it is a historical prompt, do you put all of that in one prompt, or do you create different prompts for it?
Different prompts. So feed it just a small amount of information at a time. So I would like to have you learn to write in my voice. My name is Tracie Sponenberg. What should I do? And it will tell you, please give me writing samples, and say, okay, I'm going to give you 6 writing samples. Let me know when you get the voice. And can you please write a LinkedIn post on generative AI in the voice of Tracie Sponenberg? And then you can keep testing and keep iterating. And it really didn't take very long. But I think, like I said, I don't create content. I know you and I have talked about this offline. That's I sort of write what I feel, and I disclose. You do not have to, and most people don't, and probably shouldn't. But if you are a content creator, ChatGPT is a wonderful tool. Wonderful tool.
But I do, to your point, I think you can lose your voice in it sometimes as well.
Yeah. If you rely on it solely, and there are people that do that rely on it solely, like if that's your only source, then you can absolutely use your voice, and then your voice becomes ChatGPT, which is the same voice that a lot of people are using.
Yeah. And then, and people can tell as well.
Yep.
So yeah, I think when you ask it to write a post to LinkedIn, it likes to say, "Hey, LinkedIn family," a lot.
It always does. Yeah. Which I've never said, but it always does that. Right. Yeah.
So there's someone out there that used all the first sentence to all of their historical posts, "Hey, LinkedIn family," that it just picked up on for some reason.
Yep. Yeah, I like to use exclamation point, so it picked up on that, but it was like every sentence ended with an exclamation point. So, yeah.
Matthew asks, what kind of writing samples do you provide? Email, papers, posts?
I took my LinkedIn posts. Yeah, so I took some of my favorite and my more complex ones and some of my longer ones and fed that in. And that's all I used. And that was enough, because that's sort of like how I get my thoughts out.
Sometimes I'll feed my old comments in and ask it to expand on my comments.
Oh.
Because I think again, when you're on LinkedIn, I think comments are content creation as well. So anything you write is content creation.
Yep. That's true. But that's how I do it. I mean, if you write a lot, I think you can feed just about anything into it. I thought of doing articles or something like that, but posts were quicker and easier.
So 2 comments really quickly, actually 1 question, 1 comment. Do you have any recommendations for the best apps to use? I've heard a lot of people say they have preferences. However, they do not provide an explanation of why. And then Joe says, it really depends on the use case. In my experience, I use ChatGPT quite a bit with the paid license, but sometimes Baird or Bing Chat are better, especially with the new or up-to-date info. What are your favorite apps, Tracie?
So I would have said ChatGPT. And there's also, we were hearing a lot about Claude, and there's something called Jasper AI that are similar things, but ChatGPT's really become that dominant thing. You can, and I think this is available to anyone, go into your Google profile if you have any kind of Google profile and enable AI. So anytime I search for something, not anytime, but most times I search for something in Google and I use Chrome, AI will come up always. There will always be an AI response, almost always, 95% of the time. And then just like ChatGPT, you can drill in. It will have populated questions. You can drill in, you can drill in, you can drill in. I find that so incredibly helpful because I'm just so used to Googling things. So I tend to do that. I was using Microsoft Bing for a while, and I didn't really find that to be as helpful, though it is a good tool if you use Microsoft Edge.
And so I just basically stuck with ChatGPT, other than any of the vendors that I talk to or work with. And like I mentioned, eBay. I've been using eBay, Gen AI, but I haven't used Bing or Baird or any of those. I'm so sorry. I got distracted by Matthew asking if we've given up on Discord, but I think he was talking to somebody else. I'm giving up on Twitter. There's too much drama for Twitter for me.
So torn. I don't use it nearly as much as I used to. I'm still on there, but I am not on there much.
So, audience, we have about 10 minutes left of our conversation, and I kind of want to bring the conversation back around to the human resource portion of it. If there were one human resource use case for ChatGPT, what would you use it for? Your number one use case?
Me, or are you asking the audience?
Well, you know what? I'm going to ask you, and then I'll ask the audience the same question. So, Melissa says we can't call it Twitter anymore. We need to call it X.
Oh, I call it Twitter. I can't. Yeah, no, I can't do that.
That's how long I haven't been on it. Is I still call it Twitter.
Sad. And then remember Clubhouse? Like I was on that for a hot minute, and then that disappeared. So I'm still sort of finding Twitter was great for Twitter was great for community. Now, and Threads hasn't really taken off like we hoped, but
yeah,
I don't know. We'll see. Lots of platforms. I like it for brainstorming a lot. I think it's really, really helpful for brainstorming. And this is super controversial, but I also think it's helpful for job descriptions. So if you've got a small HR team, or if you're an HR team of one even, and you're in charge of making sure there's a job description for every job, and you feed it the framework of what your job description is, it's really pretty darn good. So that's how we started. And there's lots and lots of other things. I'm curious what the audience is going to say, but that's kind of how we started.
The audience has been kind of, I've got like 5 samples or 5 use cases that the audience likes. For me, I would definitely say job descriptions, because I think those are the bane of my existence with human resources.
Yeah, same. Yeah, same. Oh, hey, Jeremy. He says the same thing. Evaluating candidates. Yeah, lots of cases, and there'll be more. In 6 months, there'll be a ton more things that we don't know that it can do yet.
Farhan says writing motivational rejection letters.
Yeah,
I think that's a good use case. And then Jeremy says, hey, Tracie and LinkedIn family. I've seen it used for most extensively in the recruiting space. Example, creative writing, dynamic. Yep, interesting. Creative ways of evaluating candidates. Interview questions. That's another one. And then Joe says, my favorite use case is generating questions, either for coaching questions or for hiring or interview questions. You can also have candidates prep by dropping the job post and have a generative generate questions from both hiring manager and candidate's perspective. Kimberly says, I'll go back to Joe.
Jump back into Joe's comment. So I was at a conference last week in the distribution industry, and it was really cool. There was like an AI thread through the whole conference. And so we did a coaching session, and we will, kind of had AI weaving through it. And there are different ways to use AI as a coach, but there are companies that are using AI fully as a coach. So instead of having a real live coach, you can use an AI tool. And you can ask AI to coach you, and you can help it, it can help you develop some coaching questions for in-person. But if you're working through an issue, I want to make sure we got this in, you're struggling with something. I did this interview thing, and I said, don't ask me about X. And I said, what do I do? I said to ChatGPT, what do I do if they ask me about X? And it gave me like a creative way to get around that question. And so it can really coach you through some situations if it's not like super high stakes.
I like that. Yeah, I forgot. I think I learned that from your posts that you wrote about the coaching at one point. And I was like, oh, that is a great idea. Use ChatGPT to coach myself. I love that. Jeffrey says, okay, why was that not working? There we go. Okay, it's also great for brainstorming questions for employee evaluations. I agree with that. And then I believe this is Danielle saying summarizing succession plan feedback. Absolutely. And Matthew wrote us a little bit of an essay there. Okay, I can go back to that here. All right. This might cover everyone. It just might cover our faces. So it almost. So ChatGPT says use case initial candidate screening, automated pre-screening. ChatGPT can be used to create automated chatbot that engages with job applicants through the online platform or chat interface. The chatbot can ask candidates a series of standard questions about their qualifications, experience, interest in a position. This initial screening process can help HR teams filter out candidates who may not meet the basic criteria. Consistency, ChatGPT ensures consistency on the screen. And then I would add in, make sure that you are having a human check that for bias as well.
Yeah, and any piece of tech that you have in your company either should have now or should be developing some type of AI component, because it's, there's an open API, or at least they make it very easy to integrate. ChatGPT does. So we're going to see that. We're seeing it all over the place. I'm going to HR Tech in a few weeks, and I can't wait to see the new uses of AI. I haven't been there in 5 years, and there was like almost nothing. So it'll be really interesting.
Yeah, I'm not going to make it to HR Tech, but I do know a lot of my clients and my vendors are going there. Clients that are vendors are going there, and there's a lot of buzz around what's going to be presented for Gen AI and use of ChatGPT. So
yeah, it's pretty cool. It's pretty exciting. It's something that we didn't talk about, Coreyne. Like, I'm curious. No. That's fine. But I wanted to throw in. I just thought this was an interesting data point. Now, it may be just my family. So I have 3 Gen Z kids. They hate AI. They are not embracing it. They think it's taking jobs. Our youngest is an artist, and she thinks it's taking away, because we're seeing, my headshots are AI. And I'm like, my husband and I are like, yeah. And I haven't kind of dug further, but definitely within our own family, there's a little bit of a backlash. And my son's in cybersecurity, so he's like, no, I don't want to know anything about that. And so they hate like generative AI. So I thought that was super, super, super interesting. And I can't say if it's a trend, but it is in our family.
And my kiddos are younger, and so they absolutely love Gen AI because it helps them play their Roblox faster. And and I was using it yesterday and helping my eldest with her homework. And she's like, Mom, I love this. Can I have my own ChatGPT account? And I said, no, no, too many problems with that.
Yep, for sure.
So audience, we have about 2 minutes before we're ending this live. Really quick, we've got a few more comments that come in. If there's any questions or comments that we did not get to, Tracie and I will respond to those in the comments section rather than live. So Lucy asks, and it's, when, oh my gosh, everything's just coming in. Like when it comes in so quickly and I click on a comment, it just doesn't bring the comment up. So if you're recommending AI for coaching, would you go to the extent of recommending it for mentoring?
No, and I wouldn't necessarily recommend it for coaching. I think it depends, like my favorite answer in HR, it depends. It depends on what you want out of it. If you need a quick, low stakes thing, Like I have a business coach, like I have a coach to help me, a real live coach, and I'll still use ChatGPT when I need to. Mentoring, I feel, and maybe this will change. I also mentor a few people, and I feel like that should be a live relationship. I feel like coaching largely should be a live relationship, but not everyone can afford it. And not everyone has the time, and not everyone needs a coach on a regular basis.
So with that, everyone, happy HR Professionals Day. We're going to be ending this live now. You can follow Tracie on LinkedIn. Tracie also has a website that you can delve into what Tracie is doing. Tracie does a lot. You see her everywhere. But if you go to www.traciesponenberg.com, you can stay up to date with what she's doing. So I wanted to say thank you so much, Tracie, for joining us today. This has been an amazing conversation, and our audience has been so interactive. Some of the questions that other audience members have been posing, other audience members have been answering. And so this is going to be an amazing replay for anyone who watches it. So thank you so very much for joining me.
And thanks for having me. And thanks for everybody for attending. Such great comments and great advice. I know I learned a ton.
And I learned a ton as well. So I love when a plan comes together and it makes it happen. So thank you, audience, for joining us today. Greatly appreciate you. Happy HR Professionals Day. Our next Progressive HR Live will be in December. We're going to have a holiday mashup for everybody of all of our guests that have, I haven't talked to Tracie about it yet, so this is kind of a surprise, but all of our guests that have been on this season, I'll invite them back to do a mashup of questions for everybody. So happy HR Professionals Day. Thank you, Resourceful Humans. Talk to you soon.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.